George Ernest Michel was born on the 2nd of January 1924 to Peter and Alice Maud Michel at their home in 89 Glue Terrace, Newcastle on Tyne in England. He had an older brother Peter, an older sister Doris, and later a younger brother Ron. His father's family had lived in the village at Lichtental in Switzerland for centuries, and his father Peter Michel left there just after World War I to work as a chef. He later became head chef at the Station Hotel in Newcastle with a brigade of 30 chefs under him. George was a keen sportsman and played first 11 cricket and soccer. He was centre forward in teams for his school and even represented Newcastle at football. Like many Englishmen, George always claimed he had the chance to play professional football if things had gone a bit differently. George was apprenticed to his father as a chef at the Station Hotel when he left school. But when World War II broke out, he was keen to do his bit and applied to join the Navy when he was just 17. In January 1942, when he'd just turned 18, he was accepted into the Navy. He started work as a junior cook on the Royal Navy Patrol Service on the minesweepers in the North Sea. Because this was considered very dangerous, the pay was an extra 1 shilling, or 10 cents, more each week. George joined the minesweepers and spent his war years working his way up to leading cook. A highlight was visiting the USA, where he had some great adventures. He lost many old friends on minesweepers, and the experience affected him for the rest of his life, both physically and mentally. After the war, George was looking for more adventures, so he applied to be a police constable in Palestine. He was accepted, but his mother insisted he withdraw because her daughter had just gone off to Canada to marry. So he did. He worked in hotels as a chef, including the Savoy in London, and had the chance to take up a scholarship to study mathematics. But he would have had to wait a year, and he was still restless and keen to leave the depression of post-war England. So in 1948, he took the opportunity to get an assisted passage to New Zealand and became a 10-pound pom. He was billeted in Devonport, and it wasn't long before he met a pretty young 18-year-old Catholic girl with bright auburn hair called Gloria Hewitt. They met at a party at the Strawbridges home across the road from the beach at Torpedo Bay. Gloria Monica Hewitt was the third daughter of Joe and Margaret Hewitt. She had 2 older sisters, Mary and Pat, and 2 brothers, Joe and Larry. Her father, Joe, drove the last horse-driven bread delivery cart in Devonport until 1949. George and Gloria married at the Catholic Church in Devonport on the 19th of March 1949, when he was 25 and she was 19. They lived in one small room at 123 Calliope Road, Stanley Bay, and on the 10th of September 1949, their first son was born. He was named Peter, after George's father and brother. George and Gloria then moved next door to 121 Calliope Road, just after Peter was born. The house was divided into 3 flats. The other 2 also had young families living there. The Rices had a daughter, Maureen, in August 1949, and the Prouds had their son Rod on the 16th of October 1949. Rod and Peter became lifetime friends. George and Gloria had a very busy social life and formed friendships with many other young immigrants from the UK. Bill Maloney, Dick Parker, Little Robbie Robertson, Bill Booth, John Rose, who married Gloria's sister Mary, and Bob Napier, who married one of Gloria's cousins. They had lots of parties, and George was always the first choice to play the piano or the banjo-mandolin, and to lead the singing in his fine, Geordie baritone voice.
George and Gloria had quite an open house for good friends, and also at the same time we met a lot of Navy people, and there was always a good excuse for a party. If there was a piano kicking around, George would always tinkle a few of the notes on the piano, and we'd have sing-songs, good old sing-song in those days. Yeah.
He played soccer for the Thistle Club until the day he broke his leg. No ACC benefits in those days. George's brother Ron stayed with him for a short time in 1953, before leaving to work as an aide to the King of Tonga.
We shared the same cabin, not just the two of us. In fact, there were 6 of us in the cabin. But Ron was a very close friend of mine, and we were sort of, enjoyed each other's company, and that was it. We were good friends all the way over from England. Bill Booth and George and Gloria and myself decided to go to the Milford dance at the pirate ship, which is no longer there, of course. And it was really funny. I didn't really know Gloria all that well, but she was quite a character. I remember being on the dance floor, and I looked round, and there's George dancing away with another lady, and I thought, that's strange. Gloria, So anyway, when I went to sit down, Gloria had been to the toilet, and she says, "Where's George?" And I says, "Oh, he's up there dancing." So the next minute she walked up, got off the seat, walked straight onto the dance floor, tapped this lady on the shoulder, said, "Hey, you're not allowed to dance with my husband." I thought, Gloria, that was so funny. Oh, dear.
George and Gloria had their second son, who they named Ron, after George's brother, on the 13th of January 1954. And the following year, their daughter, Jane Marie, was born on the 24th of July 1955. During this time, George was working as a crane driver on the Auckland waterfront. He would go off to work on the ferry 6 days a week, wearing a white shirt, a jacket and tie, and carrying a Gladstone bag with his lunch in it. After a spell working as a chef at the station hotel, George started working for Fletcher's in the city as a crane driver and storeman, and stayed with them the rest of his working life until he retired at 62. In 1962, the family moved to Northcote, where they stayed until George and Gloria moved into Peter and Jennifer's home in 1987. George had a keen intellect and was sadly never able to take advantage of that in his working life. He loved the stimulus of a good argument and took great delight in taking on the management at Fletcher's in his role of union delegate. He was well known to the senior Fletcher management and the Fletcher family, and was respected as a hard, stubborn, but fair bargainer for the rights of his fellow workers, who he led out on many a stop work to press his point. George went back once for a visit to see his family in the UK, Canada and USA in 1975. Seeing his mother for the first and last time since he left in 1948. His brother Peter visited New Zealand from California a number of times, and he and George enjoyed hanging out. They'd take a bus to Orewa Beach, one walking south and the other north, nod to each other as they passed until they'd done 2 lengths, then pop into the pub for a beer. George loved a beer and a cigarette, and spent many hours at the Auckland Working Men's Club playing snooker and socialising, and many happy hours watching cricket at Eden Park.
Beautifully bowled.
And followed the English Premier League football closely. George was never acquisitive, but he had all the things that money couldn't buy. He got on very well with his daughters-in-law, Jennifer and Lynn, and son-in-law Pat, and took great delight in seeing his grandchildren Paul, Anna, and Laura grow up.
I remember being quite close with Papa when I was little. We used to play blackjack. He taught me blackjack when I was about 8, and we used to gamble with the matches. And Mum maintains that I beat him all on my own, but I'm not sure if he ever did let me one. She reckons he was too proud and he'd never do it, but I don't know, maybe.
He was very proud of the family's academic achievements, and felt his family was a living testament to the success of his life.
His job was to carve the meat that we would have at our Christmas lunch.
He was English, so it always had to be a full hot cooked lunch, regardless of what the temperature was outside. And although he has a shaky hand because his nerves are shot, it was always his responsibility to carve the meat, and he always did a beautiful job, even as he got older.
Sadly, Gloria's death on the 6th of March 2001, aged just 71, robbed George of his soulmate. He missed her like an ache, and his life drifted from that point. His old friends had mostly passed on, and his bad back prevented him from travelling outside the home, except for his fortnightly grocery trips, and the odd trip to his club in the RSA. He lived a quiet, ordered, simple life right till the end. He always looked after himself, and did all his own cooking, up until September 2011, when he moved to Glenhaven Rest Home, after it became obvious it was too difficult for him to look after himself. Although he was never a religious man, he knew he was going to heaven to join Gloria. The day before he died, he told one of his nurses he'd seen Gloria. George died peacefully in his sleep at Glenhaven Rest Home at 12:30 a.m. on Sunday morning, the 27th of November 2011. He was 87 years old.